Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Welcome, Andrew Drasen, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Michael?
Doing well. Thanks so much for coming on. We're going to be talking about your work. And you do something very unique, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But basically, author and curriculum creator, and the idea of just helping people get out the hard chapters of their life can be so profound to so many people, because at every given point, it seems like in our life, whether it be a new week, a new month, or a new year, there can always be a hiccup, something you didn't plan for. Even in my own life, I just had a series of hiccups, and the year has just begun. Now, I have a couple of options, of course. I could say, oh man, 2026 is already a wash, right? So what's the rest of the year, right? It's just going to be more problems, more challenges, more hardships, and I can throw in the towel. Or I can say, you know what? There's hope on the other end of today. And I can keep on pushing, and I can hope for something better tomorrow. And then the mindset idea is, but what if I don't get it? What do we do then? Do we give up? Do we gradually start to decline and then eventually stop? Or do we say, it doesn't matter how many bad days I get, I'm going to be looking for that one good day? And our conversations could be based on all of these ideas in your work, of course, because you basically help people with this vision of hope, with getting out of their rough chapters and into the better chapters. So if you could, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and of course, how you help?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, my name's Andrew Drasen. I spent my late teens and 20s battling addiction, incarceration. I went through 8 treatment programs before finding any kind of meaningful recovery. And during my last incarceration and treatment program that followed, which was at a medium security prison in Milwaukee, I wrote my memoir, and I finished it 5 minutes before release. And so then I got out, life happened, and I sold cars for 4 years. I started a solar sales organization, sold solar for 2 years, and I didn't really work on the book. And I'd actually lost half of the book, and I ended up finding it at my dad's house. And at that point, I'd already decided I was exiting solar, and I had the time on my hands. So I kind of took that as a sign, like, you're meant to finish this. So I started a Vision of Hope Media, and the vision just kind of grew from there. So after my release, I got together with my fiance, and we were together for 5.5 years. And she was also in recovery, but she battled mental health issues, and she took her life last July. That was obviously, you talked about, kind of mindset and things happen to us. I mean, this was something that obviously I didn't expect and affected me greatly, but ultimately, it ended up reinforcing my mission that I want to help reach people before they reach that cliff's edge. So as I was going through the editing process, I got to thinking about all of the treatment programs that I'd been through and how a lot of them gave me information that didn't really move the needle for me as far as staying clean. Like, I didn't need to know how exactly drugs and alcohol affected my kidneys or my brain. I knew they were bad for me, but that didn't help me to stay clean. So that got me to thinking about what my intention was with publishing my memoir. And I mean, it's multifold. For one, for folks who are headed down that road, it serves as a cautionary tale. For folks who are dealing with something, it shows that you too can change your life and you can make it out and change your circumstances. You just kind of have to hold on to hope and believe it. And for people who haven't experienced things like that, I hope that it would help increase understanding, because through understanding, we can develop empathy and create better systems that produce better outcomes. That was kind of the intention, and that's what inspired the workbook and the curriculum that I built that's currently being evaluated by various reentry programs. A work release prison in Milwaukee is reviewing the information. Recovery centers are reviewing it. So it's fully built, and that's kind of where I'm plugging along right now, is trying to use my story to serve as a mirror for others so they can take a good look at their lives and lead a life that they intend for themselves.
There's different words that people like to use when they recover, if they have been incarcerated or something along those lines. People have different terminology. So I'm not going to choose a word for you. I want you to choose it for yourself. But basically, there was two versions of yourself, right? The old version of you and then the new version of you, or where you are today, right? You can even say that you are night and day different man, right? From where you were to where you are now, right? Just your mission, your vision, your purpose, everything is more grandiose. Now, when you look back at your past, what would you say you identify yourself as? A person who was lost, a person who just didn't have a mission or a purpose, or maybe someone who's just misguided?
I viewed myself as someone who didn't envision better for themselves. I didn't think a better life was possible. I mean, my first arrest happened when I was 17, and I was a felon by 18, 19, something like that. So that kind of defined my identity for a while, until I had to essentially adapt a new identity, and one that was more aligned with my morals and my values and beliefs. And that takes taking a real look at yourself and where you've been, what you've done, what's been done to you, and just kind of reconciling your past so it stops affecting your present and your future.
Today in your work, how many people do you see that do not envision better for themselves? Do you see it as the majority or the minority?
I'd say it's the minority, but I'd say that more and more people are kind of waking up and realizing that they can live a better life. I feel like there's a little bit more of an emphasis placed around like holistic healing and mind, body, spirit connection, and just living a life of intention and purpose. But I would say that the majority of us just kind of get through life. You know, we stay stuck in jobs that we don't intend, don't leave us fulfilled, relationships that don't leave us fulfilled, spend our time scrolling online rather than doing something that drives us and gives us, you know, a sense of passion and purpose. It's kind of easy to get stuck in that trap, and that trap of just survival instead of intentionally living.
Yeah, I think of, and I think any parent would recognize this, and maybe if you can even recollect of your life when you were a kid, if you were afraid of the dark, you would close your eyes. You're like, oh, I'm afraid of the dark. Is something in my room or something? You close your eyes. But the reality is, when you close your eyes, you're literally just in the dark as well, right? Your environment didn't change. You didn't go to a source with more light. You just said, I'm afraid of my environment, and I'm just going to do something that's going to help me cope with what is on the outside, right? With the idea of I can't see right now. So if I do something that I know that is natural to me of not blinking, closing my eyes, I naturally can't see. So for them, they feel safe and they feel comfortable. And most people, when they look at their potential or what they have for themselves or what is possible, they have this idea of just closing their eyes, right? It might not be where they do it physically, but this idea of mentally, I'm going to close my eyes on the possibilities of the strategies of the development. All of these things happen because they're just giving themselves a very subconscious and conscious idea of, I can see it, but I don't have to look at it, right? I don't have to look at something I don't want to look at. And most people, they just don't look at the better. They just kind of go through their 9 to 5. They just kind of go with the status quo. They just go with what is routine for them. And sometimes people, they get into this rut where the routine is a rut, where they're doing all of these things. They're hanging out with the wrong people. They're in the wrong environment. They're doing the wrong behaviors. And all of it accumulates to the things that they don't want at the end, because they wonder, like, why am I not getting the results that I think I should be having? And it's because they're not even doing the things that they have to do to get those results. So when someone is going through this rut or they're going through these challenges, you can even look back at your history when you were going through some of the challenges that you were going through. What were some ways that you were able to get a step up and to finally say, okay, I can see the vision of hope?
Well, first it comes down to, so first I kind of want to touch on that analogy of the kid closing its eyes. I mean, I thought that was very apropos. I mean, a lot of us will just kind of, if I don't look at whatever it is, then it doesn't exist. I don't have to deal with it. And so I liked that resonated. And I mean, the first thing that we'd have to do is look at our self-limiting beliefs. I mean, I truly believe that we can make our lives whatever we want it to be. We just have to believe it first, because if we don't believe it, then we're not going to put in the effort to try and create it. So the first is looking kind of at our self-talk. What are we telling ourselves? Are we speaking in absolutes? Are we playing the victim? And because we talk to ourselves more than we will talk to anyone else throughout our entire lives. And what we tell ourselves matters. So it's just kind of becoming cognizant of the words that we're using and the phrases that we're using. So that would be the first step, is becoming aware, and then challenging those thoughts that may not be based on reality or are playing into the absolutes or playing into a victim stance or things of that nature.
And this idea of the stepping stone.
Yeah, because I mean, our beliefs lead to our thoughts, which lead to our emotions, which lead to our behaviors. So, before we even get to our thoughts, it's kind of identifying what our core beliefs are about the world, about ourselves, about others, because that's where all of our thoughts are going to stem from. It's just really kind of taking a deep look at yourself and like I said, your past, because we're shaped by our experiences. It determines what lens we see the world through. So it's kind of recognizing that and then being open to other perspectives and points of view, because I feel like diversity, it helps increase the perspective and the life experience, and I believe that we can learn from everyone. We can learn from the wisest person or the biggest idiot. We can learn what not to do.
Yeah, I think of a time I didn't get lost, but I wasn't in a good situation where I was knowing exactly where I was when I went hiking in Vermont. And I forgot my map in the car. iPhones had just came out, and I was thinking my iPhone would be perfect, right? It has a map, it has GPS. And sure enough, when you go into the forest very far, there's no cell phone towers and you don't have reception. So I was like, well, I don't have a map now. I left my map in the car. I left all my gear in the car. I thought it was going to be a very short hike. Well, I was very surprised when I was 3-4 hours into the hike. And I'm like, what am I going to do? The sun is setting and I don't have enough food on me. I don't have stuff for my dog. And I was just like, I have to make a choice. And as much as I started to make some mistakes, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. It'll be a shortcut. Nope, wrong. And I was like, if I can go this way, it will probably be quick. I was like, nope, wrong. And I was doing a lot of things that I knew weren't going to be helpful until I said, you know what, let me stop. I literally just stopped on the path and I just got a Cliff Bar out, put my hiking pack down, and I said, you know what, let me think about this for a second. I just thought about how long it took me to get here. If I double timed it, how far or how long it would take me to get back. And I just basically made the choice of saying, I have to walk back. I have to go back the same path in order for me to get to the car. And then that was my first big hiking trip on my 2-week New England road trip that I was on. And I was like, okay, I learned from my first hike on that trip. Don't do what I did. Don't leave the car without your map. The phone can't be your main source of GPS, especially when you don't have reception. And of course, now technology is a lot different. You can download the maps and stuff on your phone. Neither here or there. It was something where I wasn't fully prepared. And just the fact that I stopped, slowed down, probably saved my life. There was bears in that forest. So I had some bear spray and I had my dog. Yeah, sure. But yeah, I mean, me and the bear's probably going to win. So I was like, okay, what can I do? And the idea of stopping and slowing down and paying attention, most people don't do that. Most people think that if I keep on moving, I'm going to make some progress, right? There's a saying, do not mistake movement for progress. Just because you're running in a circle doesn't mean you're getting anywhere. And some people, they're just in that rat race. They're running in a circle. They think they're doing something. They're starting, they're stopping. Think of people who are on diets, just as an example. They are very good for a week and then they fall off for a month. And then they're like, okay, well, I remember I had some salads 2 weeks ago. I should be healthy. No, that's not how health works. That's not how fitness works, right? We need to do it in a disciplined fashion. We need to do it in a way where it's long term, right? Because if I'm in shape and I go out and eat a whole pizza, I'm not getting fat. If I go eat 50 hamburgers, I'm not getting fat. But the problem is if I do it every single day, that's the consistency part where I'm doing something for a prolonged period of time. And most people, they don't want to do something good for themselves for a long period of time. They'll do the things that feel good, like sitting on the sofa and watching movies or on their phone scrolling, or they'll order some food from DoorDash or Grubhub or wherever they get their food from, and they'll eat McDonald's or Burger King and Taco Bell, whatever. And that feels good to them because they're not doing any hard work. But when they go in the gym and they're out of breath, when they're going for the job interviews and they're nervous, when they're writing a book, for example, and their hand is shaky because they're worried if someone is even going to read it, for example. There are so many obstacles that people have to go through in order to get the life that they want. Consistency and discipline is a major part in progress for anybody, the potential that they want. How were you able to be more disciplined? And how were you able to stay consistent on your road to recovery or rehabilitation, whatever you want to consider it, essentially going from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah. So I'd say the first real bout of consistency and discipline that I experienced was writing the book, because it took writing every single day, like 4 to 8 hours every day by hand. Since I was, incarcerated, I didn't have a computer or a laptop or anything. So, that, and then seeing that through, that was definitely a sense of accomplishment. Then kind of more recently, now it's not something that I do anymore, but it's something that I was doing when I was going through the typing and the editing and things like that. What I do is I'd keep a progress log. Like I use ChatGPT for quite a bit. I think it's a great tool. And so basically at the end of every day, I just put in what I got done for the day. And then I'd have it like rank me on like productivity and impact and like give me scores, and I'd put that in a file on my computer. I'd do like kind of like monthly analysis where I just upload a zip file of all of the files and kind of tell me how I did for the month. And it's just kind of keeping track of our progress, especially if we have big goals, because it can be easy for those to become intimidating and, well, I'll never hit that. And really it's more, no, I don't want to put the effort into hitting that. So it's breaking those bigger goals down into smaller goals that are more attainable, and then recognizing them and celebrating them when you accomplish them, because it's the journey. It's not the destination.
Yeah, very true. I remember when I was writing my first book, it's not out. I have it. It's done. And I was working with another life coach. And basically we were accountability partners. And basically I said, well, we have to do this every single week if you want to write your book. And so we had the goal. And for me, I'm easy. Like if I give myself something, I'm like, I'm going to do it. And for this person, it was like they kind of wanted it. So they started and they, fell off. Oh, this week was no good. And I just knew, I was like, I can't count on this person to keep me accountable if they can't even keep themselves accountable. Well, I, helped them, coach them a couple of weeks. And then I saw it was just, one of those things where they just didn't have it in them to really want it. So I said, I'm just going to let them be, because I'm not one to force people to change. When you're ready to change, you will. It is that easy. Some people, they need a little bit more time. They need a little bit more hardship, as bad as it sounds. Some people, they have to fall down and get hurt maybe to realize, maybe I should change, right? The rock bottom can change some people. For example, my dad is a great example. He was an alcoholic all his life. And it took a stroke for him to say no more, right? Even though his family was saying, don't do it, it's not healthy. The doctors were saying not do it. It was just like, okay, I'm going to keep on doing it. And it was until he got knocked over. And basically his whole life got turned upside down. He was like, wow, I should have paid attention. Now, of course, I bet there was a part of him that said, this makes sense. I'm going to pay attention. But then I'm sure there was a part of him that was just like, well, until the wheels fall off, I'm going to keep on living this life. So there's going to be different people. Some people, they just need that, that abrupt stop and saying, oh, wait, now let me pay attention. But then there's some people that you can just say, hey, let's do this. This makes sense. And let's move forward. So I say that because when I was writing the book, and in the beginning, it was tough, right? But then once I developed a habit of just writing, I was like, this is easy. Like, why is everyone not writing books? And I can understand why people don't want to write books because, again, maybe no one wants to read it. Maybe they feel as if there's nothing important in their life, or maybe they just don't like writing. Maybe school wasn't something for them, so they had to write papers or essays, and they just had a disdain for writing. But when it comes to an author, I always say that there's a reason why someone writes, right? There's a reason why you're writing this, and I call it wisdom, where you're generating some wisdom for the generations to come, because the words that you put down in that book, as long as that book is around, people can pick it up and they can read it, or they can listen to it on an audiobook or whatever format the book is going to be in. And they can learn something from that book. I call it, flakes of gold, or the nuggets of gold, where eventually, if you get enough nuggets of wisdom, of knowledge, you can create a gold bar. And that gold bar you can sell to life. And you can and you can buy anything you want. And it's not so much of the jets and the houses, but you can purchase opportunity, where you're like, I have enough knowledge and I can just use my knowledge and my skills now to transcend my situation. Now, for you, I ask, maybe you know what it is. Maybe you have to think about it. But what is one of your most favorite nuggets in Division of Hope, the book that you wrote, that you hope people can take away?
So first, I kind of want to touch on your accountability partner thing. So that's actually something that I built into the workbook. The accompanying workbook with A Vision of Hope is an accountability partner, because I do believe that that's powerful, having, someone else kind of hold you accountable until you're able to hold yourself accountable. So kudos to you for that. And your question, I'm sorry, what was your question?
It was talking about the nuggets of gold.
Yep.
Like the takeaway from your book.
So I'd say my favorite nugget isn't even from the memoir. It's from the Reflections companion book. So the Reflections, it just gives 29 bite-sized nuggets on a variety of different topics. Everything from acceptance, self-acceptance, faith and anxiety, police. I mean, it's pretty wide-ranging. But my favorite one was it dealt with finding home. And finding home within yourself, how it isn't a destination or even the people that you're around. That if you rely on outside circumstances to feel okay and at home, then it can always be stripped from you. And you're never really going to feel peace. It's not until you find peace within yourself and your own skin that you'll really be able to kind of flourish.
What does peace look like for you, and what does success look like for you?
Peace means balance and staying connected to my higher mission. And that will look different for each person. Each person, I feel like, has a different purpose and calling. But if you stay connected to that, I feel like that's what kind of defines a well-lived life. And success to me, I'd say that's impacting as many people as I can, and knowing that I put forth as much effort as I possibly could to create the world that I want to see.
Powerful. I know the act of service, or just helping someone, it might seem small to some people. Like, I help somebody, sure, great, but when you help somebody, even if it's just one person, your whole life changes. I think of so many different stories. I mean, I could tell you about the boy and the starfish. You might know that story. I can think of my great-grandmother, which is the story I'm going to use today. My great-grandmother, she was a Catholic woman, born and raised in Puerto Rico, came over to the United States and New York working, and then eventually found her way to Connecticut. And fast forward, her life a little bit until when I was born and I could pay attention, of 7, 8, 9, whatever. There was a gentleman across the street. He lived in a trailer. And it wasn't that he didn't have a home or anything. It was just his situation was not the best for him. His family had kicked him out of the house. And so he had to go live in the trailer that was on the side of the house. He had issues with his wife at the time, and he got divorced, or basically kicked out of that situation as well. So he didn't have many places to go. And for us as kids, you see someone in this rinky dinky trailer and everyone else in these homes, you have to think like, what's wrong with this individual, right? he must be crazy. He must be something. He's scary or whatever. You're a kid at the time. My grandmother did not care. She did not care. And she would go over there, give him food. Like she worked at the church, and for summer camps, they would have like these pre-packed lunches of milk and sandwiches and stuff like that. And if there was any left over, she would bring it home. And it wasn't for us to eat. It was for her to give away. And so she would sometimes go herself, but then sometimes she would make us do it. We were like, okay, go give this to Jim across the street. And we were reluctant to give any meal to him because we're a little nervous. We're like, who's this guy? And he would always be thankful. He would always say, thank you for everything that you have done for me and everything. And we're like, okay, whatever, right? Well, fast forward a little bit, years down the road, maybe 5 years down the road, this man did a 180, right? He was out of that trailer. He had an apartment. He was living good. He had a job. And I remember he came one day to my great grandmother's house and he knocked on the door. I answered and I said, hey, how you doing? He's like, hey, is your grandmother available? I look at her. I said, are you available? And she was like, yeah. And then so he comes in and she's so happy to see him. Like, I'm talking about like someone that's your favorite person in the world that you haven't seen in 10 years. And you're just like, oh my God, how are you? She lit up. And he was working at a bakery at the time. And he basically came in and talked to her. He had brought her all of this bread from the bakery. And he was like, I have all of this bread I want to give you. And he went on to tell a story. He went on to say how he was able to change his situation from the trailer. He also probably had some issues, along of substance or alcohol, whatever, but he changed his life, his circumstance. And he even went on to say like she was one of the reasons why he was able to get out of it, right? Just one person that cared, one person that didn't turn their head or scowl or scoff or something like that, or throw rocks. It was just someone who believed. And I remember even in some of my darkest times, it wasn't a mentor per se. It was a book that changed my life. It was a book that reminded me that I'm not alone. And sometimes I know there's a disconnection between people saying, I need to speak to someone like this, where I'm speaking to someone on a Zoom or in person, or I'm speaking to an author that has written a book, right? And sometimes those words can reach down to your soul better than any therapy session, better than any conversation with a friend. It's just sometimes the words are just so right. And it takes that right person, someone who has gone through something, or maybe someone who didn't care what you went through. They just saw what was in you that you didn't see yet. And I believe my great grandmother, she saw something in him that I didn't see. I wouldn't have done what she did or did at the time, but today I would. It was because I learned from her how to be generous, how that act of service can be so powerful. And the work that you do is powerful, helping people, whether it be one person at a time or a group at a time. I know you have some services that you're going to be offering to some facilities, some jails, etc., where you're going to help people with the reentry process, where I understand when you leave jail, or if you leave incarceration, if you leave a tough situation, the outside or what's to come next can be very difficult for someone, because who wants to hire someone who is like Jim across the street, living in the trailer that you don't know anything about, right? There's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of red flags. And most people, they'll look at the gray area, they'll look at the red flags, they'll look at the problems, they'll look at the resume, and they'll say that I don't want to deal with this problem. And sure, right? Maybe you're right if you follow your intuition, your gut, and you say, okay, this is not a good fit. But what if you gave someone a chance, right? And I know, the work that you do is going to be helping people understand that there are going to be people who are going to be giving people chances. Or if there are not any people around them, how to create that chance for themselves. And I always say, just because everyone is looking down on you or no one's cheering for you doesn't mean that you can't find someone or that you can't be that person yourself. I always say this, and it's the idea of belief. You need at least one person to believe in yourself, ideally two. And if you can believe in yourself, you are that one person, right? You just have to be that one person and your whole life can change. The idea, though, is that if you have any fluctuations in that belief, you got the limit there, something comes up and you don't catch it and you let it, ricochet and hurtle down the way, it's going to destroy you. So that's why having that accountability partner, having someone in your corner to help you, I mean, it is priceless. So I know I said a lot there, and I'm going to pass it to you to kind of reflect on everything I said, and then we're going to do some final words, some final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely. I liked the bit that you talked about. Is if you believe in yourself, you're that one person. Because one quote that I really like is, whether you believe you can or you can't, either way, you're right. I believe that the only limits that we have are those that we place on ourselves. So it's challenging those beliefs and then putting together an action plan to create a more aligned life and kind of breaking it down. So it's you kind of have a step by step to creating that idyllic life for yourself, because we kind of touched on it. So many of us are caught up in survival instead of living our desired life. And that's what I'd challenge people is, if you're stuck in survival, try and make it out. I mean, we only get one life in this body, in this time, on this planet, so make the most of it. Make it what you want it to be.
Perfect. And now, if you could, can you tell people where they can find you, the book, your works, how you help, and how they can seek any services that you have to offer? And then to give us a final takeaway. It could be a quote, it could be advice, it could be a book that changed your life, it could be anything that you want it to be.
Yeah, I'm available on all social media, Andrew Drasen, Drasen. You can also visit the website, avisionofhopebook.com. The books are sold wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, etc. If you're kind of interested in the curriculum, just shoot me an email, andrew@avisionofhopebook.com. As far as a takeaway, we're all connected. And we all need help at some point. None of us are completely interdependent. We can't do surgery on ourselves. We can't do dental work on ourselves. We can't do chiropractic adjustments on ourselves. We all need assistance at some point. And there's no shame in asking for help or offering help. It just kind of goes back to that, treat others how you want to be treated. I mean, if you were in this situation, what would you do? How would you want people to treat you? So just try and live with empathy for others, because we don't know the road that others have walked.
Very true. And amen to that. I'm 100% on board with that saying, or that last little bit. I'm going to make it easy for everyone. If you want to reach out, all the links are right down below, from your website to the books to also social medias. I encourage people to get in touch with you, Andrew, and just to have a conversation. Maybe someone who's listening right now, they're going through a hard bit in their life. Maybe they have a similar background or story of yours, and maybe they don't see the hope yet. And for you to say, hey, I've been there, it makes it more real. We can look at so many stories of people who have done something for the first time. Before that first time happened, everyone said it wasn't possible. And as you said, if you can believe it, right, then you can achieve it, right? You are the key factor of your life. The idea that if you are in a rough place right now that you can get out, that's a good thing. But if you're in a rough place right now and you think you can't get out, then we have to start to look at who can be that jump starter for you, right? As you said, you just can't get a chiropractic adjustment by yourself. You have a chiropractor. I have a great one myself. He's phenomenal. But this is to say that if something is wrong or out of whack in your life, seek help, right? The links are down below. And I do want to thank you, Andrew, for coming on, spending some time in it, and of course, talking about your work, your book, and your life story today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael. It was a pleasure speaking with you.